So in my hands, I have a retro that's 6 years old now. These ones came out in 2017, I believe. But this is the Nike Air Max 1 OG colorway, the OG, right? The one that we know is the OG. But here's where things get interesting in 2023, because now we have this pair right here. First of all, a really dope box. I like the kind of aesthetic that they have there with a little clear window on the swoosh. Very fitting for the shoe, because you have another version of the Air Max 1 OG. And this one features a big bubble, as you could see on the midsole of the shoe, but not just that. There's about 13 changes that I found on this shoe, different than the previous retro. And so I wanted to give you guys kind of a breakdown of all the small little different changes that I found, and hopefully you guys find this video somewhat informative. I also wanted to get into the history a little bit about what this shoe represents and why this is the shoe, because honestly, I was kind of confused. I was like, wait, I don't remember Air Max bubbles ever being that big, so like, why are they just now bringing it back out and servicing these shoes? And then you read the description on Nike's website, and it says, let's be clear. Sneaker culture and history begin here, the Air Max 1 Big Bubble. The holy grail of sneaker lore returns along with the true story of visible Nike Air. Using CT scans, yes really, to dissect one of maybe only 400,000 released pairs of the Big Bubble, used in the 1986 original, so that you can step back in the bedrock of sneaker history. And don't worry, you still get the throwback color blocking. Hiding in the shadows of one of Nike's biggest stories, that of the revealing of the Nike Air Max to the world, is the fact that for the first few months of the release, the Nike Air Max 1 featured a noticeably bigger window. So like, why did the window shrink? With the launch date in place and manufacturing already started, Nike engineers, to their dismay, discovered that the exposed air unit had a tendency to crack in cold temperatures. Adjusting on the fly, the engineers quietly shrunk the window both in length and height, and began using a new air unit to prevent the great cracking catastrophe. They released on March 26, 1987, the ultra-rare Air Max Big Bubble hit the shelves and then thankfully didn't burst. After the initial run, the Air Max 1 as we know it secretly replaced the original, taking hold as the leader of the Air Max pack. And the Big Bubble, it faded away until now. Welcome to the beginning. First of all, kudos to Nike for bringing us an actual product with an actual crazy story and bringing something from the archives into production with the proper storytelling. Is just super rad. It didn't take much, just a paragraph of really cool stuff to let you go, oh dude, this is cool. I don't remember that. I wasn't part of the original release, and you know, I wasn't one of those people that had one of the original big bubbles that they ended up recalling. I know that there's something similar in the past. You have the Nike Air Max 180s, and they had a really small bubble on the retro pairs that happened in like the late 2000s. And then if you look at the original ones, the air bubble is much bigger. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that the patent of the Air Max 180 bubble like expired, which is why I think it's like a 20-year patent or something like that, so they couldn't actually use that in retros or something going forward. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I'm not a patent expert, but that's the main reason that I remember hearing they changed up the air unit. Maybe it was just laziness though. Hopefully they bring us back to an original 180 air unit in your Nike Air Max shoes. I'm talking about the Barclays. I'm talking about the Air Max 180 running shoes as well. I mean, it would be awesome to be able to see. But anyways, this is a really fun adjustment and change up with the Air Max 1 because of the massively huge air bubble in the shoe. And I do have the previous retro here to look side by side and just get my overall thoughts on the shoe. Now, I hit on these on sneakers, but I hit on the women's pair, which is honestly super confusing because it's women's, but then they have men's sizes listed next to them, but it says women's on the box. I don't really understand. Honestly, they should just standardize all of it. And some people are like, well, if you standardize it, then, you know, women have naturally slimmer feet than men. Well, there's women that I know that have wider feet than myself. There's also men that I know that have way more narrow feet than the average person. So on average is the solution, and by average is like human. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. But overall sizing of the shoe, they do fit a little bit big. I would say they are true to size because the retros previously were a little bit snug. This one is a little bit bigger than the previous. So if the snugness was a problem, these might be a little bit too big for you, to be honest, true to size. But you guys can leave a comment in the comment section for your thoughts on the overall sizing. Anyways, I wanted to go ahead and transition into all the changes of the Air Max 1. In the original colorway, I don't have the original pair of the 86s in front of me to be able to tell how historically accurate this is to the original pair of 86s that were pulled off of shelves. That would be a really cool video, to be honest, but I just don't have anything like that. I'm just comparing it to the previous retro because when I look at this reminds me of the Air Maxes that I have lots and lots of these ones in my collection. This is like almost a completely different model. There's so many different shifts and changes of what they did to this that I figured I'd just share them with you. Starting off, obviously, the air bubble, it's massive. It's way bigger than the previous. There's actually 4 circles on the air unit in the new version versus the 3 circles in the previous version. It's longer, it's wider. It's just an all-around much bigger air unit. Also, something to note is the red trim on the heel is much higher on the new version. It's very low cut on the previous retro. But as you work your way up the heel counter of the back of the shoe, the new version has a much smaller mesh section on the top versus the retro. So bigger red section on the heel, smaller mesh section. So not only are the lengths of the material different on the back, it's actually more material. You can see it's actually much higher than the other retro pair as well. Also, when you're looking at the tongue, the Nike Air label is much different than the ones that we're kind of more used to nowadays. The Nike logo is actually much lower on the patch on the tongue, and then the Air Max wording is actually much thinner, like less bold than on the previous. Also, if you look a little closer, the tongue loop on the tongue where the laces go through, that is twice as thick on the new pair versus the old. The laces themselves are different as well, different materials and different thickness. The newer one is much thinner. And the overall mesh on the upper is different as well. It's like a larger gauge mesh on the new pair versus the old. It's hard to tell, but I would say that the colors on the new pair is a little bit more vibrant than on the old pair. And as I was talking about the fit of the shoe, the overall length of the outsole traction is actually longer than on the previous in the same exact 9.5. So interesting that it's that much bigger, but like it's literally like a different shoe size, and not just the traction, the overall upper looks longer. So it's almost like a size 10 to the 9.5 from the older version. Very interesting. Also, the Nike logo on the inside of the shoe is smaller than on the older retro, and the midsole sculpture is completely different as well. There's a couple different areas where it's definitely more pronounced, like the sculpted parts on the two notches on the front, as well as the lines on the heel. They're definitely more deeper lines inside of the midsole. Also on the old pair, you can see there's a line that goes above the air bubble, and it kind of goes all the way around and wraps around the midsole. And on the new pair, they don't even have that one. The air sole is so big that they just kind of canceled that out. I also noticed some like half circles on each side of the midsole under the bubble, which is different than the previous as well. On the new pair, you also have the size on the collar of the shoe, kind of a nice little addition there. This one again says 11 because it's women's 11. And the last difference that I noticed is the stitching on the toe box is much wider across the bottom of the tongue versus the older pairs. It's like a little smiley face and then a big old smile on the new big bubble version. Very fitting, I guess, for the version. But those are the kind of the key differences that I saw between the two. And if I miss anything, leave a comment in the comment section, let other people know. But what do you guys think about the big bubble of the Nike Air Max? Is it something you guys are interested in picking up or not? Curious to see what you guys have to say. I'm sure somebody's going to ask, is it more comfortable than the other ones? I'd say it's a little bit more comfortable, but to be honest, it's an Air Max 1. It's not like React Foam or like Zoom X or anything like that. If you want something crazy comfortable, then like those are better models. Nike Pegasus for kind of an in-betweener for comfort. This is like on the firmer scale just because it is the old 86 technology of the Air Max unit. Well, if you guys enjoyed the video, thank you guys for stopping by and watching. If you guys are interested in watching other videos, feel free to subscribe and notification bell to be notified when my videos are posted. And I appreciate y'all for stopping by and watching. If you guys want to buy a pair of these, I will link them in the description to like eBay. I think that's probably their best bet at this point because I believe they're gone on Nike's side. But anyways, thanks again for watching. See you guys. Peace.